Yo, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Future Strategy Gaming channel. I'm gonna get this video up a little bit before Happy Floral Friday, as you can tell from the floral shirt, as well as Happy Live Letter Friday. So today's the 17th of September, which means we have our first live letter. This is live letter number 66, and this is going to be pertaining to Endwalker. What I do expect to see is the job action trailer, as well as battle changes. Potentially belts might get covered just because it will affect jobs, as well as the stat squish. Now, what I don't expect to see, anything world related. I know that a lot of people have speculated about it, but I don't think we're going to see a lot of information on Old Charlian, the Moon, Garlemald, things like that. I expect to be covered during the media tour. Now, I know there's been a lot of speculation, but I don't think we're going to see any deep dungeon be announced just yet. I think that might be premature, and that's something that's on the back end of the patch cycle, so I don't really see how that's going to happen. What I am curious about, and it is kind of a wild card about, island sanctuaries. While I don't believe that those are going to release with 6.1, if we hear about them tonight, if we hear about the island sanctuaries, I think we're looking at like a 615, 625. If we don't hear about them, I think we're realistically looking at like a 635, 64, which it was touted as one of the keynote things. Like it had its own like special area on the slides during FanFest. So I'm hoping that it's the latter, it's the earlier one, 625. But we'll see, just because we don't know, with everything that happened, the pandemic causing things to slow down, the oceanic servers having some issues getting up just due to semiconductor availability. We get it. So let's talk about what I do expect to see tonight, and that is going to be job changes. Now, for job changes, let's start with healers. As you know, we're getting a new class in Sage. I'm a bit interested in what direction that the other healers will be headed because of Sage. Now, we do know that Sage will have an emphasis on shield healing. Where does that leave Scholar, and where does that leave Nocturnal Sect for Astro? As an Astro main, I'm definitely a bit nervous because it feels like they're going to be pushing Nocturnal Sect out and making it so that White Mage and Astro are going to be your regen healers, and then Scholar and Sage are going to be your shield healers. And I understand that mindset for balance sake, but this might end up really affecting me on a personal level, and B, affecting what is considered the meta and making it difficult in endgame if one of these is definitely more effective than another. Astrologian, because we had 3 healers, you'd be able to kind of fill in. It's like, oh, either there's a Scholar or a White Mage. Okay, well, the Astro can fill the other one. And that really helps. With this, while I do enjoy Diurnal Sect, I'm very nervous that removing Nocturnal is going to be kind of a mistake, in my opinion. So I'm hoping that's not the way they go. When you look at Scholar, something just has got to be done about pets. They seem useless and boring. One idea I've had is to make each of them a specific heal type. They've already done that with Seraph. I forget the name of the other one because I don't play Scholar very often, but make the other Carbuncle a regen effect, much like you would get on a White Mage, and then make Seraph's buffs even more. Essentially, hey, I'm going to use Seraph because I'm already shielding, but I want my shields to be more effective. Great. Or, hey, I'm solo healing this dungeon, I'm going to do my shield healing like I normally do for Scholar, and then again, I forget, Carbuncle number 1 is what I'm going to call him or her. And then Carbuncle number 1 is going to do my regen effects so that I have a little bit of everything. It doesn't have to be over the top with potency or anything like that, but something to make them feel like you have a choice, and B, just feel like they're not just background noise, because it feels like you just don't get much out of them. Pets are super weird in 14 to begin with. I don't think they're fully utilized to their maximum capabilities, but we'll see. I just think Scholar, of all the healers, is going to need a little bit of retooling. And then lastly, when it comes to healers, there has been rumblings that Square Enix wants to move away from DPS being less important for healers. I kind of have two thoughts on that. I think one, by making DPS feel less important, they're going to have to go and find a way to fill the fight for healers. That's either by making healing more important and difficult, or by making it more frequent and necessary. Other thought on that one is, if they want healers to not focus on DPS as much, some of the DPS checks in these fights have got to change to compensate for that loss. If they're going to make healing more, I think effectively right now you're seeing 9 to 12,000 DPS. Obviously we got a stat squish coming, but high-end healers who are progging and doing exceptionally well in their class are seeing anywhere from 9 to 12k DPS for healers. If you effectively look at it as a grand scheme, that if you got 2 healers, that's 20,000 DPS that you need to find elsewhere. And I don't know how you do that. What do you compensate with? Do you make battle jobs, or not battle jobs, but DPS jobs more effective? Or these DPS checks just have to change. I mean, there's no other way around that in my opinion. But that's pretty much all I got for healers. Let's move on. We'll go to melee DPS. So I don't play a ton of melee, mostly because I enjoy healing it so much. But as for the melee, we know that we have another new class with the Reaper. I know for a fact that tanks and healers in particular are going to feast on the short queues because of that at the start of the expansion. So if you're looking to level 1 up, you can just wait until Reaper comes out, Sage comes out. Those heal queues and those tank queues are just going to be super quick. So with Reaper, we really don't have an idea of how the class is going to functionally work. We've seen the aesthetic so far from what they've shown us, but we don't know if it's going to be positionals, what the rotation is going to be like, what the combo systems are going to be like. I think maybe lore wise, it might be wise adding a B-res to a melee job. Like Red Mage has the range one, Summoner has the range one, you can have like a melee job. I think it fits depending on how you implement their battle system. If it's like a combo point system and each time you effectively do a combo, your point is 1 soul, for lack of better words, but you reap a soul, or you reap a soul fragment, and it takes X amount of these resources to battle res. I can see it working in theory. There's got to be some flavor. It feels like melee already has like a designated role of what it's supposed to achieve, and Samurai tearing it up the way it is, Rogue being a fun play, Monk having its issues, which we'll talk about in a sec. I just don't understand or know how Reaper's going to fit. And kind of like Gunbreaker as an example, you can use the cartridge system but in a different way. So I'm interested to see kind of how they go. I know we'll get a little bit more information on that tonight in the live letter. Right now, when you look at Samurai, it feels fantastic. Honestly, I'm just hoping that they add compliments, and not exactly sure what else they can bring to the table that will improve it. I think the way that the gauge works, as well as I forget the actual name of your icons is what I call them. It already functions exceptionally well. It pumps, so people already know and love the job for what it is. So anything they bring on, you're just kind of hoping it complements it in some way without convoluting that system a little bit. And then Rogue is exceptionally fun, and it has so much going on, much like the Samurai. I also really don't know what you add to that one. I don't know what you call it, murder, the murder system or whatever it is. Tell me down in the comments. Maybe expanding on that system a little bit is kind of the direction they're gonna move on, but I just don't know. We'll kind of see. What we do know is that Monk needs a big change. Honestly, it is my highest eye level character in game right now, but it's got so many issues. Like the skill cap is so high, and it's fun honestly, but it just feels like it needs work. It feels like if you don't execute at a high level, that you're almost a hindrance, and it shouldn't be like that. I almost feel like for a class that's designed the way Monk is, if you wanted to keep the functionality and how the class works, the job works, that's fine. What I would say is, by let's use a 1 through 10 scale. If you don't use positionals for all these abilities, I think you should be able to achieve a 7 on that scale. And if you do use all those properly and execute, you make it a 10, so that the gap isn't so large. Because right now it feels like if you don't use positionals, you hit like a 4 to 4.5. And then when you do hit positionals, you hit like an 8 to a 10. And that discrepancy just feels so large that it almost feels insurmountable, and it makes it one of the least represented classes that I've seen in progression, just because the skill ceiling is so high. So we'll see what they do with that one. But I think going into this live letter, we can all kind of agree as a larger community at whole, the 3 classes that need the most love right now are Monk, Summoner, and Bard. So we'll talk about the other 2 classes later. But to finish out Melee, we got Dragoon, which is fantastic. Honestly, I think the only thing that I would want changed is the length of time that you get locked into your abilities when you do jumps or you do backflips. Better players will probably tell you that that's not necessary. I've definitely jumped off of a platform before, so it just depends. But one thing that I've been thinking about when I think about what I want them to add, I think for Dragoon, I think it does great for group utility, as well as kind of like the dance partner having the Eye of the Dragon thing. I think one thing that I would want, but don't really expect, is to add kind of like a dragon summon, like not necessarily a pet, but like you summon a dragon to come help you, and it does, it changes your burst window in some way, kind of how like Reaper, from what we've seen, you can turn into, like, you can have your additional Reaper guy come out and do these, additional attacks. Or I was also thinking Palace of the Dead has the Manticore Pomanders, where you kind of turn into, it's a Pomander of Rage, where you turn into the Manticore and you get all crazy. What if like one of the abilities would turn you into a dragon, and you effectively have dragon abilities for a 10-second burst window or something like that? That I don't expect any of that stuff, but on a personal level, the way I see Dragoon playing out and how I think evolution would work in this situation and how to expand on that class, those things make sense. Maybe I'm trying to justify it for myself, but those things make sense to me. So all right, so let's move on to physical ranged. So there's 3 classes. I think for physical range, the rework that Machinist got has been fantastic. I think this is proven by the amount of people playing it, not only for getting into raiding, because it's one of the easier jobs to execute, allowing you to learn the fight a little bit better, but I think also the upsurge in Palace of the Dead Necromancer attempts, this being kind of that main class, has definitely kind of shown what's going on. And it's funny, I wrote this script before watching the Melee changes over on the Work to Game channel, and I'm with Brian. Brian, if you watch this video, I'm totally with you. If we don't see a chainsaw from Final Fantasy VI, riots in the street, I'm done with this game is a lie. But yeah, I mean, I don't know where they go with this class, how much farther they can go, but I think the change would be nice. The chainsaw could be nice, because my favorite classes so far have been Red Mage and Dancer, kind of having that interplay between ranged and melee attacking. And it seems like it's a theme with those 2 classes. We can push it that way for Machinists as well, so we'll see. Dancer right now, I think, is not my favorite class, but when playing it, feels like one of the best classes to play. I know it's mostly sought after for progression, having dance partner, that 5%. I think it executes very well. I think it plays very easily. It is proc based to a certain degree, but I think executing it to a high level is very easy once learned. No class is easy to start, but once learned, I feel like Dancer has kind of a very high floor, and that's great. That's what you want for a class that isn't going to top damage meters, but is effectively going to help the rest of your group. Now, this is one of the classes I was most excited to talk about expanding, and the reason I bring that up, I saw a Reddit comment that actually makes a ton of sense, and something that I would love to see for kind of like a level 90 ability. So I'm just going to use base numbers. These are completely fake. To help explain. So let's say dance partner currently, I know it's at 5% for the sake of the argument. Let's say it's at 10% right now if I put it on the black mage that's in group. Well, the comment suggested that the level 90 ability for the dancer was to choose additional partners. They went on to say, you know, it could be a duet, a trio, a quartet. I'm not going to get into that. However, the idea itself, I think, is really cool. The more partners you have, the less that damage is, but it effectively adds to the overall baseline. So for instance, right now, you put it on another person, you and that person have 10. If you put it on an additional person, then you now have 8% between the three of you. If you put it on an additional person, it's now 6%. And if you put it on one more, 4%. You put it on an additional, it's down to 2%. You get the point. But I think in most cases you wouldn't use it to the extent where it's only a 2% buff on that. But I think adding additional partners is kind of a cool little flavor. You know, bards, in my head, bards songs effectively, you know, touch the whole group. There's no reason that dance partner can't do the same thing. I know they already have group buffs with some of the standard steps, and I forget what the secondary step thing, the higher step is called, but finishing step, I think it is. You know, I think that little system of all the stuff that I've seen as reworks, I think it would be really fun and interesting. I also think that it would almost necessitate having a dancer in group, so that could kind of form this weird little like meta conversation. So I don't want it to go too extreme, but I think it's a really fun idea, and I think if they found a way to implement it well, it could be really good. Now, I left Bard for last on the physical range, and I did it on purpose. We all know that this class needs love. You know, I think when it comes to combat, I can say that. Everything else I think is great. Bards have performance mode, and that's fantastic. And just the look of everything looks great. But I just, you know, like one of the best things about Final is the fact that everyone always says you can play whatever you want. The balance is so good, you can play whatever you want. But it feels like bringing a bard is kind of a loss. And like that sucks, because for the people who do play bard, I feel bad for you, because yeah, you can get in and people are cool about it. But if you could play like a dancer, or you could play a machinist or a red mage, why wouldn't you bring those? You know, like they offer more, and I think that's unfortunate. So I'm not sure what bard really needs to get there, whether it's a damage increase or a different type of utility. For me, being the only bow related class in game, it feels extremely lackluster. I come from games, you know, I think about Lord of the Rings Online, Skyrim, Valheim, and as well as Hunter in World of Warcraft, and then in Guild Wars. You know, it just feels like this isn't as good as it can be, and I don't know whether or not they add another job in the next expansion that is a pure bow damage dealing DPS, you know, like a ranger class or something like that. But I just don't know. There's no reason to bring a bard right now, and I hope that changes. I want that to change, because the performances are awesome. If you haven't RP'd, go into Limsa and see those things. But outside of that, I feel like they need love, and it would be good for the greater community to allow them to be a little bit better. So let's move on to magical ranged. When I was playing WoW, it felt like that there were always two classes that were overpowered or in a great spot at all times. And I think the community would constantly make quips that, oh, devs play this class, so it won't ever be bad. Now, for instance, the lead game dev in World of Warcraft currently plays a class, and for the last few expansions, that class in every iteration has been pretty fucking good. So that being said, the reason I bring that up is I'm speaking about Black Mage. You know, Yoshi-P plays it, and man, it's well loved. It's a really fun class to play. It's not for everyone. The skill ceiling is exceptionally high, but for the people who get it, it's pretty sweet. I don't think the playstyle needs to be changed at all. I'm just looking to see what they add. I'm not sure where they go. My head says that maybe combining multiple schools of magic to make larger blasts would be kind of the way they go, but I don't know. Black Mage mains, why don't you sign off in the comments, let me know what you think they can add to make it better. But right now it's great. So I mean, as long as they don't mess up what they got right now, which I don't think they will. Yoshi-P loves it. I don't think they'd change it. I don't know what to expect. I'm actually super excited, because it's one of the classes that feels like doesn't need a lot of work and will be exceptionally fun because of it. So next up is Red Mage, and Red Mage was so fun to level. I think its utility, the instant cast res, makes it almost invaluable in prog fights. I think the way that it feels and the play really flows, and it's different enough from Black Mage to be a great iteration of a magic damage dealer. And I also think the interplay of magic damage dealing to heading into melee and doing physical melee attacks is really unique and really fun, and I would like to see more of that. I think if we can expand on this class, maybe some new combos within the casting system would be warranted. Like, don't get me wrong, I like Verstone, I like Verfire, and the way that it interplays when it does proc and all that, but I think there could be a little bit more in that realm. So I think that's what I would want to see the most. I think the melee side of things is great. It's super basic, but the way that it plays, very fun, very, very fun. And I think Red Mage is in a good spot, and I look forward to seeing what they add to it. For the magical range, the last one I left is Summoner, and I spoke about this earlier. I left it last on purpose because it needs the most love. Right now, it plays extremely well, or not extremely well, extremely similar to essentially Warlock in World of Warcraft, and I think that they should actually lean into it more. You know, I think on Warlock there's 3 different specs. You know, one of them, dots, is the focus, one of them pets are the focus, and one of them spellcasting is the focus. So for Summoner, on the whole, you get pretty much a blend of all those. I think they need to lean into that more. I think that there needs to be more frequency on summons, or bigger summons, one of the two. It just feels like they should either have it so that you're constantly summoning and those guys affect your rotation because they give you resources, or, you know, you essentially should be charging up to make this one grand summon. I look at, I take a note out of Final Fantasy VIII's book. That was my favorite Final Fantasy to begin with, but the way that you summoned your Eons, and the boost feature that you could eventually level up, I think some way of doing that to make a larger summon would be fantastic. When I look at the dots, I actually hope they add more. And how I see that playing out is, I currently have 2, if I remember correctly. I would want them to add 1 or 2 more. And essentially, one of your abilities that you get while leveling consumes all the dots, but then makes your summon more powerful. And it really puts an emphasis on that pet. I don't think that you need to increase the casting of, like, your, I forget what the spell is, but your main filler spell, if you will. I don't think you need to do anything crazy on that one, but I think because you're called a summoner, I just want more impactful summons. I want stuff to either be more frequent and you get to see all these Eons and Primals more frequently, or I want to see some badass big ones. You know, like, they've got some good ones right now. You'll see Garuda come out, you'll see, you know, Ifrit. I want to see Rama come out and light up a boss. You know, I want to see him ride in on his horse and start shooting off stuff. I want to see Titan come out of nowhere and throw a huge ass rock at the boss and watch it chunk the boss for a huge amount of damage. And this is just off the top of my head. Let's say Titan is your big summon. You've been working your entire 2.5 minute rotation to get a big summon, and you get Titan. And there's a scale of 1 to 10 for how strong it's going to be. If 1 is what you achieved, the rock should be relatively small. If 10 is what you achieved, it's a boulder now. You know, like, some flavor there, I think, would be really, really fun, and a way to make it more unique and specific away from the Scholar of just being the pet class. I don't main Summoner, so I could potentially be overcorrecting, but right now it feels super clunky, and honestly, this is one that I might sway. If they do a good job in reworking it and changing how it works, I might make that my main caster, because it looks, in theory, it looks fun. It looks like something I would want to do. I love the Warlock in WoW. I love the idea of having Primals and Eons, as they were called in Final Fantasy VIII, or Aeons, excuse me. But it just, when I play it right now, I just don't love it. I don't. I think the Summoner now, I've gotten it up to 65, so I could be missing some stuff, but it just doesn't feel very good, to be brutally honest. I feel like I'm falling behind every dungeon, and I'm not able to effectively do as much damage as I probably want and should. So, lastly, on all the jobs, let's move on to tanks. So, Tank's got a lot of love in Shadowbringers. It has become infinitely easier to tank dungeon content with the way that threat generation works. The one thing I think I saw, and we as a community saw, is a certain meta comes into play for progression groups when it thinks about which tanks are best for that. I'm hoping that they can find a way to offset this with some advancements through the classes. Paladin, let's go with Paladin first. This is the only tank I truly dislike, and that could be a weird statement because I haven't unlocked Dark Knight yet, so we'll see. But honestly, it's super boring and user friendly, and for some people I totally get that and it works for them. For me, it just seems like no matter what, you're relegated by your own toolkit to be the off tank, which in theory is okay, but it always means you're second best. You know, that's not always the case if you get into an alliance raid and you've got, not an alliance raid, you get into a party finder group or duty finder group and you've got 10,000 more health than the next tank. Yeah, of course you're gonna main tank, but with a prog group the assumption is you're going to be the second one. And I think in EW I personally would love a more offensive spellcasting toolkit from them if they're going to be relegated to that role of the second tank, just so that they could burst out a little bit more, because right now it just feels like keep up your physical dot and then hang out, play, chill. Just seems kind of boring. So and that's me speaking personally. You know, I'm not going to speak to your experiences. Gunbreaker is great. I think they did a fantastic job, Square Enix that is, at making a tank really feel like a DPS with more armor, and that's fine, but or that's great. But as a healer main, I also feel like healing Gunbreaker can be kind of all over the place. It just seems like the damage reductions aren't as impactful on Gunbreaker as some of the other tanks that I have to heal, and the self-sustain while it's there, it's not nearly enough in comparison to some of the other ones. Maybe they add another cartridge system that has a focus on healing, and I don't know, I don't main it, so I can't speak to prog groups, but I can tell you from dungeon content, it's extremely difficult to heal just an okay Gunbreaker. I mean, if you get a above average tank, it's going to be easy no matter what class they're playing. But I think if you look at the broader community as a whole, Gunbreaker seems to be the hardest for me to really be my most effective. You know, and obviously Astrologian's got its own issues and its own bag, but yeah, I think the damage rotation is fantastic. It makes it one of the most fun tanks to play by far. It really feels like a DPS. So that's great job. I'm looking forward to, I like I said, I would just like a little bit more self-sustain or a little bit more reduction, I guess, but we'll see. So as I said, Dark Knight, I haven't even unlocked, but it's on my to-do list. I know people rave about the story and everything. I get it. Dark Knight has a lot of redeeming qualities, but I think if I could speak from a healer's perspective, a slight rework on how Darkest Night works might be warranted. Of all the other invulnerabilities, this one just seems like the weakest. Absolutely having to heal you back to full or you die is a extremely risky business. And if you're in a pug group and your healers aren't watching or they're not prepared, and maybe the Dark Knight is in a pug and doesn't use a macro that tells you it's been activated, there's a really good chance that that tank's gonna die. And as a healer, I feel bad, honestly, when you compare it to the other tanks and vulnerabilities, because it's not a matter of not knowing, it's just not, it's a matter of not paying attention. You know, and I don't see it, and it kind of sucks, and I feel bad for Dark Knight. So that's the only one I would change for that one. I'm interested to see where else they can kind of go with this. I also think that the role actions for tanks could get a little bit of a rework, have a little bit more homogenization, and maybe throw some of those invulnerabilities in there or a couple of other damage reductions. We'll see how that works out. So lastly is Warrior. This is the tank that I have the most experience on. It's also got a deep fan love, and I totally get it. Fell Cleave and Inner Beast window damage windows are absolutely nuts, and it honestly, it rivals some true DPSs Yeah, some true DPSs, like actual damage burst windows, and outside of that, it just feels okay. And I think that they have the best self-sustain and best healing of all the tanks, and it feels like a really good class to play. But then when you look at the groups that are doing prog, you see less warriors, and that's because outside of that burst window, their DPS just doesn't hold up. And I think if they got a slight bump on their specific rotation, and you know, just like their normal rotation that they use to build up their meter, I think if that got a slight bump would be good. I don't want to recommend adding too much to the tanks because honestly it's not my strong suit, so I'm kind of speaking from a different mindset. But of all the job types in 14, this is the one I enjoy the most after healing. So but I also play it the least amount because healing just has such short queues. Who knows? I'm super excited for Live Letter tonight. That is at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or Daylight Time. I forget what they're calling it these days. So depending on where you're at, that could change what time it is for you. What do you want to see? I put these together kind of last minute with some thoughts and some predictions. Can't really wait to see the job action trailer, but do me a favor, sound off in the comments. Let me know what you're hoping to get out of it. I'm going to record the entire Live Letter tonight and then break it down into segments with some videos to come over the week. Look out for the next episode of This Week in Eorzea. That'll be episode 2 on Monday. And as always, I'm Drew from Team Future Strategy. Enjoy your day and enjoy the Live Letter. Take care.